Well, you see, if you always look positive, to things, then you are not punishing yourself. Because when you are negative, you are punishing yourself. It takes part of your body, part of your happiness, part of your energy. But when you are when you are positive, you analyze things and see what I can do to do it better.
My guest today is Hamzi Moghrabi, and he is unique in several ways. Today we are celebrating his 90th birthday, and he has spent 90 years of his life so far making the world a better place. He's still doing that actively today. A precocious child with plans of becoming a medical doctor, a war stripped that dream from him as well as his homeland of Palestine when he was just 14 years old. His family transitioned overnight from being wealthy landowners to living in abject poverty. And yet somehow he managed to find a way to get a degree in engineering. And he put that degree to use building infrastructure across the entire Middle East, building sewer lines and hotels and highways from one end of it to the other. Later on, he would use that engineering degree to create energy from solid waste, from municipal waste, by building zero waste plants that are still actively working in Lebanon and in other cities today. But he did much more than just engineering. He is also a social rights activist and social justice warrior. And he has worked at this since he was 14 years old and continues to do that when he's 90 years old. He's also been a passionate peacemaker, opening his heart and his home to anyone willing to discuss peace in a rational, pragmatic, respectable manner with dignity for all Israelis and Palestinians who are trying to find a way to both live in the world peacefully together. Today, he spends his time raising and distributing funds for Palestinian refugees living in camps still to this day in Lebanon. He has raised money for about 900 refugees so far to give them college educations, and they pay it off and they pay for the next student. So it's a beautiful thing that he continues to do. And I hope that you will enjoy this conversation. We talk about a few different things in addition to his life and how he spent it. We talk about the shifting geopolitical realities in the Middle East today, which are undergoing a massive shift as we speak, and the need to be active and help people wherever you live at whatever time you live. I hope you'll enjoy this conversation between myself and Hamzi Moghrabi. Hello, Hamzi Moghrabi.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Hello. Welcome to How We Changed the World podcast.
Oh, thank you.
This is such a great opportunity for us to visit because I don't think we have seen each other's face and talked for about, I don't know. I don't want to know, 10 years
About 10
or something.
years.
Has it been 10 years since you were in the United States?
No, I mean...
well, that's crazy.
I think it's more than 10 years. It's about 18 years.
If it is, I don't know. No, it's not since you moved away. But anyway, we digress. It's been too long. And the auspicious occasion for this, conversation for us getting together and talking again is, I feel like I need a drum roll. It's your 90th birthday coming up in 2 days, yes. Right? On the 28th? Is that
next Tuesday?
So, we're going to air this, I think, the day after your birthday. So you have been 90 for one day when this airs. So happy birthday!
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
As I just told you, you look amazing, sound amazing. I can't believe that you're 90. You don't look different than you did when I knew you at 60, so I don't get it. But whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
Well, thank you. I'm 90. I don't hide it, But I'm always active,
Yeah. Is this your secret, do you think, to staying, because your brain is wonderful, your health is still wonderful, you're very active. What do you attribute that to?
Well, you see, if you always look positive, to things, then you are not punishing yourself. Because when you are negative, you are punishing yourself. It takes part of your body, part of your happiness, part of your energy. But when you are negative, when you are positive, you analyze things and see what I can do to do it better and to overcome it. And
Hmm.
I think that's what, and takes things as a
You think
challenge.
that's the secret?
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, you've had a lot in your life that you could be negative about, which we'll talk about a little bit. So you have learned very early on to make positive out of negative situations, and we can all learn a lot from you on
Well,
that regard.
yeah.
It's true. Well, so today we're going to talk. Okay, so you're coming to us from Lebanon right now. You're in the mountains of Lebanon. I am coming to you from Belize. So we are very long ways to the country of Belize in Central America. So we're very long ways away from each other. But we are going to talk about a few things today. First of all, a little bit about your personal history as a refugee and how that affected your life. We have talked about it a lot in the past. We're going to talk about current events in the Middle East. There's some very pivotal developments in the geopolitical sphere, especially in the Middle East. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. We are going to talk about some of the work that you've done throughout much of your life on the environment, way before anyone else. You were definitely an early actor in that regard, working to preserve the environment. And just sort of your lifetime of having made the world better. That's what this podcast is about, how we change the world, how we make the world better. And you've spent your entire 8 decades, doing that. So thank you for doing that.
Well, you see, because in the first place, you have to look at people. You know, you have to you have to live with people. You have to know the odds there, and
The what?
I mean, you can
You have to
see
know the what?
you have to face the different odds. Which are the differences.
Yeah.
And always you have to think back positive in a way that how can I help? How can I do it better? You know, since I was a child, I was hoping to be a doctor to help physicians because my father was sick and I used to give him injections and so on when I was still 10, 15 to 15 years old, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I went to school, to an American school inside the Lebanon before we became refugees. And
Mm-hmm.
when we became refugees, my family stayed in Sidon, and I was able to work and help my other brothers and sisters while I was in school. And when I graduated, I went to Bahrain for 2 years to be a teacher in a elementary school. So that gave me I first see the suffering of the refugees, being a refugee, being at a time that when you don't have money to pay for your school or to pay for even an ice cream if you want to, or go to a movie. But in Bahrain, I learned accounting and so on while I was teaching. So after 2 years in 1953, I went to Kuwait as an accountant and stayed for until 19 until until 1958. From 1953 to 58, I worked as an accountant. In 1958, I went to Colorado, to CSU, and studied engineering for 4 years. 1962, went back to Kuwait, and this time as an engineer that worked on different projects, from sewer lines to roads to hotels. I mean, I was involved in constructing 4 hotels in different countries.
Well, just to let me provide a little bit of context for our conversation, how we know each other, and where you were, how you became a refugee. We're not going to spend too much time on the story because you and I met in 1991, and we were both volunteering for an organization called Society for International Development in Denver, Colorado. And at that time, you were the first, perhaps maybe the second Arab I had met, the first Muslim perhaps, and the first Palestinian I had ever met. And if you'll recall, I was afraid of you a little bit, not much, but a little bit. And but over time, because we were working sort of we'd see each other once in a while because I would have some work to do with you regarding SID. And slowly you told me your story of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but from your life story, really, your family's perspective. And you told me so many stories which I was resistant of. And then eventually, though, I just said you should write a book about your story because it's quite amazing what your family had and went through and how you became a refugee. And then, of course, how you've lived the rest of your life. So that has now been, we wrote the book, it came out, it's been out for many years, still available in 3 languages. And I'll put it in the show notes in case anybody wants to read your whole life story. I think it's still fascinating, even though I wrote it, it's your story. And it's now, we published it twice. It was originally called Moghrabi's Olives. We had to self-publish the first time. Couldn't get a publisher, and then eventually we got one, and then we had a publisher, and they named it The Olive Grove, a Palestinian Story. So that's where and someone can hear your full story of everything your family went through, but I just wanted to establish that where you grew up and where you were born and what happened, and you became a refugee at the age of 14, basically, right? From Palestine, you went up to Lebanon.
Yeah. You see, I remember quite well when we first met. You were the secretary that takes the minutes, and when I spoke in the organization about the Palestinian question, and you looked at me in very questionable way, and you were.
I didn't believe you.
You were very polite in asking questions whether I was saying the truth or not, and you doubted it, and then I told you why this information are not in a book, and I told you, well, no, you told me, why don't you write a book? I told you, why don't you write the book at that time? And then we started to talk, and so we ended up with Moghrabi's Olives. And, But the main thing, in that thing was that when I came to America as a student in 1958, I was surprised to see many people don't know what Palestine means, what is a Palestinian. And in Fort Collins, we happened that there were
in Colorado.
Hungarian students, that they were refugees also. we had something in common,
Oh,
and we lived in a farm that we used to raise eggs and buy a cow every 3 or 4 months
really?
and have it
Huh.
have it butchered in the school because they were teaching how to do it, and we put it in freezer, and all the year we eat meat,
Mm,
and that really
mm.
taught me more how to be more independent and to solve one's problem. And I recall that when I was in school, I used to go every Sunday to a church to speak, and I became popular
Was this in was this in Colorado when you were in
in Fort
college?
Collins.
Are you
In
talking
Fort
about?
Collins,
In
yeah,
college.
Fort
Yeah.
Collins, and we counted how many churches there is there. There were 52 churches,
Mm.
you know, and there was a friend of mine from Jordan that used to accompany me, and who was a Christian. And sometimes when they talk about, well, this is Muslims or Christians and so on, he comes up and say,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Christian, I'm Christian Arab, because very few in Fort Collins at that time knew that there are Arab Christians, or even in Palestine
There's,
and Palestinian. And I demanded
I
that in
think,
Jerusalem you have the Holy Land. But anyway,
and the birth of Christianity, right?
yeah,
Is many people still. You said you're talking about in the 1950s, but I can tell you that there are many people in the world, at least in the United States and probably around the world, who still do not know that the birth of Christianity is exactly in Palestine. So
yeah,
it's, but not everybody understands or remembers that. So
yeah. And I think Americans who don't know much about the history, when they understand it, they become very, very interested. And
they certainly do.
and even when I came back in 1985 to Colorado as an immigrant at that time, where I got the U.S. citizenship,
Citizenship.
uh, I formed in Fort Collins in Denver a
Mm-hmm.
dialogue, uh, a dialogue between Arabs and Americans and
Mm-hmm. And Jews.
and Jews, American Jews.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Mm-hmm.
had a Christian one from a church, and a rabbi, and and myself, that we represented the three Christians, three religions
Three faiths.
that
Mm-hmm.
we formed, and that was a good thing, because I remember uh, the first time that when one of the Christians that we were talking about, he talked to a rabbi, and the rabbi told him, "How can I sit with him? How can I talk to them?" So, and
Talk with who?
with
Arabs?
Arabs, and then he
Muslims?
became my best friend, Rabbi Foster.
I'm sorry to say that would not happen today unless you come back and do it again. Because those conversations aren't really taking place so much anymore. We're more at a loggerheads again between Israelis and Palestinians. But we don't want to get too far off on that subject because it is just one part. But I just really appreciate how much of that work you were doing for a very long time. Well, you in the U.S.
Well, I feel this is something, inherent in myself. So
You can't
I
help it.
couldn't I couldn't
Yeah.
just watch and read and even until today.
Yeah.
You know, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I became the national chairman of ADC, which is the Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee, and
Mm-hmm. In Washington, D.C.
I I went to the FBI director. Everybody was afraid from the FBI, and I told him,
Arabs in America
I
were.
told him, uh, do Palestinians and Arabs need somebody to protect them, or the United States protect them? He said, no, everybody is the same. We don't, I told him, but I have a convention coming. I want to invite you to the convention. Would you come? And he did. And so...
He came to the Arab American Discrimination Committee
the
convention?
ABC. And he did. And that was a breakthrough that many Palestinians used to be afraid from the FBI's.
The FBI.
That it gives them some confidence, But
so he came and participated in the conference, the FBI
yes,
director, or spoke?
He came and he spoke.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, and that's something that was really good. And even President Clinton at that time, he was he was very ignorant, I would say, about the Palestinian issue. And in his second term, he changed his policy, and he was very positive, although there are so many things that happened at that time, in that area, But
well, as a bit of a coincidence, so when we wrote the book, I went to your former home with you in what is now Israel, and while we were there, this was what was this, 1994 maybe, because Clintons were there when we were there, so it was the first visit, I think, of an American president to Israel anyway, and they were there he was there to usher in the peace agreement between Israel and Jordan at the time.
I think you and I went to see his wife, and we couldn't.
Yeah, we did.
Well, I remember that was visit to Israel. It wasn't easy for me when the plane landed, to just come down the stairs, and you were with me, and I think you gave me some push or something that, okay, it's my home, but I don't know. So. And that,
I think, though, that you had been back before with Ruba one time.
I went
that
twice.
Was really hard for you to go.
I went twice after that. But the first time was the most difficult time, because I think we were in Beirut, and we went to Cyprus, and Cyprus to Jerusalem. But that was something, it encouraged me, and anytime I can visit there, and I have some friends there.
Yeah, so, you had many friends still there. So when you left, it was Palestine. When you came back, it was Israel, and it was about a 40-year gap between visits.
I remember when we went together to see my home, my father's home, our family home, and it was turned into a synagogue, and we couldn't enter, but we went to a Moroccan Jew that was living in the upper apartment. We visited her, and I still have some pictures of the other day. I was looking at the pictures.
Oh, really?
It was.
Yeah, those are emotional moments for refugee to go back to their home, and it's a different country, so it's not easy. People don't understand maybe sometimes how not easy that is for Palestinians, and most Palestinians, frankly, can't go back. But you could go because you were an American citizen. That's why you were allowed to visit.
That's the sad thing, that I can go to my home because I'm American, not because I'm a Palestinian.
Well, the world is very confusing sometimes, I will tell you.
And
so you wanted, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to switch gears a little bit, but if you wanted to say something else, please feel free to. You want to move on?
No, I'm really disappointed with what's happening in the world today, because the world abandoned the Palestinians until now, and the daily massacres of Palestinians in Israel, in the West Bank, every day, like yesterday, there were about 4 or 5 people killed, and 6, 7 taken to prison, and They take children, they take, and I feel the world abandoned the Palestinians. And this is why
Well,
we try to help, let the world understand the problem of the Palestinians. They are not refugees, they are not beggars, they are people with dignity and with good understanding.
I'm wondering if you can talk about this new development that happened in the last week or so between Iran and Saudi Arabia, possibly, or they have agreed to restore diplomatic ties and to open embassies in one another's countries and so forth. And so if you could talk about what you think that's going to mean for the Middle East. It was brokered by China, and everything about it is new, and everybody's trying to figure it out still, I think. But what is your take on it? And especially as we get to the end, what you think the impact will be on the Palestinian situation?
You see, it is difficult to reach a conclusion about the Palestinians because the problem is so big. The attention of the people today or the world today is among the powers: United States, China, Russia, and Europe, and Korea, and all. So the attention is not being paid for humanitarian reasons on the Palestinians' problem. But let us say China now has no foot in the Middle East. This is the first time that China has brokered some kind of peace negotiation between Iran, which is a Shiite Muslim center or leader, and Saudi Arabia, who is a Sunni Muslim leader. They were enemies. They were really they were against each other. Now, if they make peace between them, which is happening now, will resolve a lot of problems in other areas, like the war in Yemen, which is now the center of attention, and the other parts like the problems of Syria and Iraq, because after the American withdrawal from Iraq was left in very confused in a lot of uncertainty,
Turmoil.
Between all the parties there. So as for the Palestinians, this will help the Shiite group, which is the Hezbollah, and the Palestinians in Gaza, and the Palestinians struggling for independence in the West Bank. In Israel, with the coming of Netanyahu, with the extreme vision, it will not contain only the West Bank and Palestine, but will extend to Jordan and the southern parts of Lebanon. So the conflict is, while the world is busy now between China and the United States, and between Russia and Europe, and the world is moving, and we see some change now in Biden attitude that is not going to give Israel the arms that they asked for. If Netanyahu wants to come to the United States, and see Biden will not meet him, which is
I didn't know that.
So
that's a big change.
Well, or not did not accept, did not allow, or make or make a date for a meeting with him, and they refused to let him come. So
maybe he just said he was busy. So you think the United States is now is cooling, you think, a little bit to Netanyahu, or because of his right-wing coalition? Is that what you
Yes,
think is going
yes,
on?
because
Okay.
the United States now is in a democratic with the Democratic Party, which is less which is less supportive of
Less tolerant.
Israeli terrorism, or what I call terrorism.
But
Yeah.
Hamzi, could you speak a little bit more though about this this geopolitical change that's about to happen, because it's significant in terms of the whole restructuring of the Middle East, don't you think? With the Shia and Sunni like no longer at odds. I mean, then that change. What will happen in Syria, for example, if there is
What will
peace
happen,
between
you
them?
see, now, the positive side of it, on the positive side of it, that if this continues, that means peace will be
If this
in
détente
Iraq.
continues,
If
détente
the
between détente, if
Yeah,
the diplomatic relations between
between
Saudi
and
and
Saudi,
yeah, okay, if that
because
continues,
this means that Iraq will improve, Syria will settle its problems, and Lebanon will settle itself, because Lebanon now is no government country.
no president.
There is no
You have no
president, there is
president.
no
Yeah,
government,
yeah,
no house, no parliament. I mean,
and
no
it will help.
banks.
It will help. It will help Lebanon.
To help
Can you?
Lebanon to go back as a country, as a government. So, and this also will help North Africa, like Libya and Algeria, while Tunisia is one of the best.
When you
So
say help, are you saying because the conflict?
the
I'm.
conflict will be resolved, and China now is willing to build, to restructure the Middle East, to build trains, airports, electricity. I mean, they want to invest billions in the area, and in the Middle East.
They have been. They have been in North
And
Africa for a while too.
yes, but they haven't been in. They have been as companies, but this will be aid, you know, to to restructure the economy of each country. That they want to restructure the economy of the Middle East by trying to join them with so many things. And these are programs that were done about 50 or 60 years ago, even more than that. When I was a high school student,
Oh
they
my
were
goodness.
trying to
Things
plan
that need to be
about it.
restructured.
Not the Chinese, but
Right.
people, people who were talking about the Middle East, unity and so on. But the British and the French at that time were against such development, and the United States did not help when it came to power. And so China now is, is presenting itself with no conditions. So how this will work, we don't know yet.
Were you
So
surprised that Biden was supportive of the Chinese involvement in brokering peace? Because he said,
who who will
President Biden, he
no?
was supportive
So
of it. He said, if somebody
yeah,
can
this
arrange
is
that.
the other side of it is that America and the West are not going to allow, in theory, that oil and things will be in the hands of the Chinese, because the Chinese open market for oil from Iran and from Saudi Arabia. You know, they can buy all their oil products because they are a big country. The United States, or Biden are worried that their influence in the Middle East will diminish, which already diminished,
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's a valid worry. It's a valid
Yeah,
worry, but they did say that Biden did say that he's in favor of it if China can help shift the balance in from away from war and toward peace, it really does benefit everyone. So
but
at
you
least those
see,
are words. Everything's there's always two levels going on, right? There's the comments
yeah,
that they say for public consumption, and then there's the policy and the
but
behind the
because the
scenes.
United States and the worries now is about China and not the Chinese influence in the Middle East, but the Chinese influence in
Southeast Asia,
Korea, in Japan,
Taiwan.
and the Far East,
Yeah,
Taiwan.
yeah.
And this is where the United States worried about than in the Middle East. Yeah. And with the coalition and between China and Russia,
Yes, that's a big concern right now for sure.
that is
Definitely, that's a
very,
concern.
very
Yes,
important things to you, because then
to
Europe
to the world.
diminished,
Yeah,
and
right.
it's not Ukraine, but it is all of Europe.
I don't know if it feels this way to you, but it feels to me that the world is about to enter a huge shift of major proportions. Like we're seeing that happen in a way that I don't feel like we've seen since maybe World War One, where we have the Sykes-Picot, where everything changed in a major way. And it just, as we're just watching little piece by piece what's happening around the world, it just feels like major things are changing in terms of world, the shift in power.
Since the end of Second World War, there has never been peace with no war. I mean, there were intervals of peace, but always revolutions, coup d'etat, wars. Now, the problem is that there are nuclear arms, because the war before, the armies, they needed artillery and soldiers. Now, it's not the number of soldiers, but it's the number of missiles, number of guns. The war is more catastrophic
Right.
between nations if a war breaks. I mean,
You know,
Ukraine now, they are hitting civilian cities, rather than
yeah,
trying to hit armies and
military targets.
army locations. So what is going to happen if war breaks out? I don't know how much of the world will survive, will come back.
On that unhappy note, I want to shift you a little bit, because war also impacts the environment, which we're struggling with on every level. Because what's happening just in Ukraine is destroying not only lives, but it's really decimating the environment in so many ways, as war does, in addition to all the human toll, which is critical. So my question, though, is that you had mentioned that you think there is a common denominator for a sustainable environment, and I wonder what that is.
You see, when we talk about war and destruction, a building was hit, we can repair it, but the damage is not only the war to the environment. You see, our treatment of our style of life is very damaging to the environment. Whether it is in the cars, in the factories, in the planes, and one of the most, which I consider, is the municipal solid waste that are produced, whether there is war or not, whether people are poor or rich. That is something that will affect the environment of the air, the pollution, which is seen in some places, and the potable water, because when they put waste they do landfill for waste in the ground, this will seep to the groundwater, which is the reservoir of life, as I see it. That when it becomes that polluted, it is not a matter of time that cannot be repaired, it cannot be, because polluted, to build factories, to treat, it's not easy, It's not it's not something that you can do overnight. And this in this while I was in the United States, when I was chairman of ADC, and my mother was about to die, I went to Saida, and I saw Saida had a lot of waste in the streets, no collection, nothing, because there was different addresses there, And when I went back to Denver, I discussed it with the municipality of Denver, and they told me that when we want to do a project, we first go to college, to universities, ask them to do a study, and from that study, we look for countries, for companies who can repair it or who can apply it or can do. So I decided or agreed with three universities. So I made a company. I made a full design, but the application is more European because it is different from the United States, because your organic is taken out. And
so you made a company. You made a design in Saida, near Sidon, which is south of Beirut in Lebanon.
I made a design for Saida in the United States.
While you're living here.
Yeah, and this is why I came and formed the company, and we built it there. So it's now working under construction.
So it is working. It's under construction, or it's working now.
Yeah, because we get fertilizer, we get electricity.
Oh, this is happening now.
It's happening now,
Okay.
Because from the organic component, we put it in a digester, in an aerobic digester.
So I think if I recall, you reclaimed a lot of sand from the ocean to build the plant on because you didn't have a place to build it. And then, is that right? And then you built a plant on the reclaimed soil?
On the seashore, you see, I took about 900 meters into the sea and filled it to reclaim land.
That's where you built the plant.
And built the plant on that one because there was no place to build it. So I reclaimed, part of the seashore.
Oh my goodness! I didn't understand that before. So, and then Hamzi, so you built this plant, and then you take this. Have you been able to eliminate the need for a landfill in Saida?
Yes.
And so there's no landfills now, or not as many?
No, for Saida.
You were way ahead of your time. I mean, that's the point here, I think, is that, and in fact, just to sort of bring us full circle, if I can, so we're kind of getting to the end of our conversation, but
now I am busy in trying to get education to the Palestinian students, which is my thing, because I see that I'm saving lives, I'm saving people.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
And I hope I will continue to do that. But we raise money.
This is what you're doing
because we raise money to be able to finance it,
So just to summarize, you've gone from accounting to engineering. You built highways, hotels, buildings, infrastructure all over the Middle East. Then you went into and then further environmental use when you were building the plants. And use your engineering skills to help the environment as well. So use your engineering skills throughout all your life. You also worked on social issues your entire life, and you still are working on social issues. You're working on it. You're helping students to pay for their education, and you worked on peace all of your life. And I'm just thinking there's just like so many different areas and so many ways that you have shown up wherever you go. It doesn't matter if you're in Akka, or you're in Saida, or you're in Denver, or you're in what town are you in now? You're in the mountains of Lebanon.
Anyway.
Wherever you are, you're working, you're Washington, D.C. Like, you bring the same skill set that you need for that comes from you, and you take the situation that you're finding wherever you are, So I just think you're a remarkable role model for everyone, that you don't have to just say, well, I'm going to do this one thing, or I just have this one skill. It's like wherever you go and whatever skills you have, there's a way to apply them to make the world a better place.
Well, because wherever I need it, wherever there are people, there is a need. And that need, I try to cover.
Yeah,
if I can.
And the benefit of it, if there's a silver lining to all this for you, it's that you're turning 90 this week, and this has kept you very interested in life. It's kept you very engaged in life, kept you young. And it's beneficial all the way around. It keeps your family alive. It keeps everyone moving forward. So you've had a remarkable life, and I'm lucky to have been a part of it and gotten to walk through some of your life with you at different points. And I feel so happy to be with you again now after all these years.
And I know you are very industrious person, that you are always like to help, and really, you see, you are always in my mind, thinking about.
Well, we've been a good team. We've been a good team over the years. Yeah.
Okay.
And people are still reading your stories. So I just want to encourage people to go, if you want to hear more about Hamzi's family story, to go find that.
I wish we can reprint the Moghrabi's Olives,
I'm ready. You have it. It's in your hands. But we go down another path now. We'll talk about that offline. All right, Habibi. Thank you. Shukran. Blessings to your whole family. Much love to all of you. And we'll talk. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.